Good evening and welcome to JJ Wins here in Holiday City as we begin another journey on Sports Weekly presented by Terry Hendricks Ford. For all of our Cleveland fans, they are up 7-0 going to the ninth inning. We are interrupting the end of this afternoon's game with San Diego. Cleveland firmly in control as we roll out our first show of Sports Weekly. Again, powered by Terry Hendricks Ford and live at JJ Wins in Holiday City. Also brought to you by the Bryan Parks and Rec Department, Fackler Monument Company, and the main stops of Northwest Ohio. A lot of football to touch tonight. We'll talk with Hicksville head coach Lucas Smith in just a bit. Foz and I are going to dive into, we're on the cusp of week 0 in college football, but so many changes, and I want to get the Foz's take on what's happened, what's happening, where we're heading with a lot of things in college athletics, in particular college football. Andy Robinson, the new head football coach at Montpelier, is going to be up first, but first I want to welcome in Mike Bumb. Good to have you back, my friend. Good to be back.
Good to have you back. Year number 7 for us?
Yes.
Right? And then we had our first football game on Friday.
Yep.
And that was a success. Two great teams, Edgerton and Eden, battling it out. Was not decided until the last 4 minutes, I think, of the ball game, where you start to feel like...
That's when that second 2-score lead happened.
Yeah, you start to feel like Edgerton was going to pull away there, but it was a competitive game back and forth. And now on Wednesday nights, we get to do the radio show, talk to some coaches, talk about college and pro football, and whatever else comes across our plate. Looking forward to it.
So we want to go ahead and get a little bit of information out of the way tonight as we begin this 9-month journey. This is our first show of 2022-23, and for you and I, it is our last first show.
Yeah.
We wanted to let everybody know that after this year, we are wrapping up Sports Weekly. Thought about it in the off season. We feel like we have gotten to that point. We don't want to get stale. It's like that. I've used this analogy, the Seinfeld analogy. You want to go out a little too early rather than a little too late, and some other things potentially on the horizon. You know, Bummer, when you and I this was co-created. You came to me, we talked about this, went to Jody and Josh. They were instantly on board. We loved that from the beginning. We've loved this total atmosphere here and the embracement from coaches and fans that have come out. We still have 9 months to do this show, but this is our last first night. We feel like this is a good time.
And let's make it our best last first night. What do you say, brother?
I'm with you.
All right.
I am with you 1,000%. So we wanted to let everyone... So hopefully you can get out at least one last time to take in the show here this 2022.
We've had some huge crowds in the past.
We have.
I mean, we've had wall-to-wall crowds, man. And this is a good crowd tonight. So hopefully we have more of that here in our last year. And, you know, I've always said too, Angie, you are a treasure in Williams County. Everybody knows it. I know you're going to say, "Oh, shucks, don't say that about me," but there is not a better radio man. 30 years now you've been doing that?
30 years. No, actually, it'll be an anniversary in radio the night before Thanksgiving. When Bummer's my guest, right. It'll be 30th year in radio.
And I want that pre-Thanksgiving time slot. That's my slot now, right?
It is your slot. It is your slot. I'm not taking that away from you.
So, yeah, we're lucky to have you, Andy, and thank you for letting me tag along with you all these years. And let me tell you something. I always tell I'm the Will Perdue of the Chicago Bulls, and you're Michael Jordan. Nobody remembers Will Perdue. He wasn't very good. But he won a championship because he played with Michael Jordan. You're Michael Jordan. I'm Will Perdue.
All right. Thanks, boss. Appreciate that. Let's talk Montpelier football with Andy Robinson. We had him on when he got hired. Andy, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on again.
I know we'll get to opening week, and I know it's not a pleasant memory. It's a starting spot. I want to talk, though, off-season. We had you on. You were getting kind of this journey started. Let's talk a little bit about Montpelier's off-season.
We had a really good off-season. Our lifting program continued to get better and better. Anthony Coleman's been running my lifting for me. He's on staff with me, and he's done a great job with the guys. Our numbers were up, much up actually from the last couple years. Got a couple new kids come out. Had a good freshman class come out. We had it at about 35, and we're sitting at about 33 right now. So off-season wise, I thought the kids, you know, I thought they were pushing themselves well. And we're excited still for what's kind of to come.
What do you want as you begin this coaching journey? I guess give us a little background into what you believe. I mean, I understand you're going to tweak that with what you have talent-wise, personnel-wise in your program, but what are your core football beliefs, Andy?
We're trying to get back. I think the main thing is, you know, I'm an offensive guy. I'm a spread guy. I've brought that here. It's kind of what I grew up with. It's what I played in. But before all that, I'm trying to instill in the kids how important it is to get back to playing good defense. And we're getting there. People are going to look at last week's score and probably not see that, but we're getting there. And these kids are starting to play a little more physical. We're tackling a little bit better. We're taking on blocks better, and we're getting smarter. I think that's the main thing, is understanding the game, what our offense is trying to do. So I'm trying to, we're trying to put that in first. And I got Steve Branchow back on staff, and he runs our defense, and he's got them just rolling right now.
You got a real good staff. A lot of veterans on there that have coached a long time. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about some of them are here tonight, some of your staff?
Yeah, absolutely. I went out, got Steve. I needed him to come back. Fantastic coach. I thought he was a great head coach when, I got an opportunity to be under him for 1 year. Great defensive mind, played some college ball. So it was great having him back. Troy Roth, kept him on staff. He's been around the game forever. He helps me on the offensive side, especially. He's kind of in my ear, what can we do in the run game here and there. Todd Friend is still with me, and he brings back, he's kind of the tradition guy. So he played, there's been a lot of talk lately about these, early 90s teams, and he was on those teams. So he does a great job of kind of, telling the kids, hey, this is what it used to be like. This is what it could be like again. And then, like I said, Anthony Coleman has done a phenomenal job. Coaches our running backs, but mainly he is our strength guy, and he does all that. He takes that all off of my hands, and that's been huge.
We want people to appreciate that it can be tough and challenging to put a staff together for a variety of reasons, especially at a smaller school level, but explaining how you got these guys either to stay on board or come back or hire them. It sounds like each and every one of them, you had a purpose in mind as to why you were hiring them. I guess talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I knew I needed to I needed guys around me that had been around the game a long time. I knew there were going to be a lot of things. I know, this about football or that about football, but there was going to be a lot of things being a head guy really for the first time in a football program that I didn't know anything about. So, Steve, he's been a head guy. He did that for, 7-8 years. So I needed him back on staff, and he's done a great job of helping me. Troy Ross, he's the head coach in the other two main sports, boys-wise, and wrestling and track. So he's been able to help me out, too, and say, this is what I see, or, I've dealt with this before. Maybe this is how you could deal with it. And even not necessarily on the staff, but, I was around Joe Brigle the last couple of years, and he still helps me. Regardless of being on the staff or not, I can ask him questions. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And it helps me kind of grow, especially being a young head coach.
The TAC this year going to be competitive. I think it's as wide open maybe as it's been in the last few years. Talk to us a little bit about who you think is the front runner.
Yeah, I agree. Ottawa Hills, I think, to me, is the front runner. That they've got a class that I remember those kids as freshmen, when I first came in here 4 years ago, and now those kids are seniors. I see they're kind of spreading out a little bit. They're using their athletes a little bit. I think they're going to be dangerous here. They're going to be tough. Eden's got some really good skilled kids. So I know they're going to be tough still this year as well. Northwood, Northwood's always going to be good. So, and Hilltop's gotten better as well. So, yeah, I agree. I think it's wide open. I think anybody could win it this year.
Disappointing opening week for you. You knew you were against a team that's loaded and a team that could possibly win the GMC this year. Who knows? They're going to be right up there with the all-league quarterback, Keaton Aldemus. What were some positives or some things you can take away from that game going forward? And how do you, I don't know if sell is the proper word here, but how do you keep your kids engaged and let them know that, hey, it didn't work out for us against a team that was just better than us going forward, but here's where we improved. Here's where we can use this to get better down the road.
Yeah, we talked to the kids. It obviously was disappointing. Anytime you lose, it's disappointing. It was disappointing to get beat kind of the way we did, especially we started out so slow. I was trying to talk to the kids. We bring them in Saturday. They were great. They came in Saturday. We said, hey, we're going to watch film, and then we got to flush it, and we got to get ready for Evergreen. But we brought them in, and I guess the encouraging part was we're watching film, and it's like, hey, we kick off, and we make this team, who is probably one of the best teams in the area, go 12 plays. They drive. We had them in 2 third downs. We were that close twice to getting them to punt, and then they take one of the best receivers in the GMC and they go over top of a freshman. Okay, we'll live with it, right? They kick off. We fumble the kickoff. All right, we make them go 6 plays and inside the 25, and they score on us again. So you're down 14 right away, but it's showing the kids, like, we were that close.
Not that far away.
No, we weren't. And, offensively we are. We're still progressing. It's going to take a second. I was a little disappointed offensively. We didn't move the ball in the run game like I thought maybe we could, but they have a brick wall that plays at nose guard for him, and the Robinson kid at 330, and we just couldn't really move him. We had some trouble with that, and the passing game is something that's going to take a couple games to come along. We know that, but defensively we were that close, so it's trying to get the kids to understand that.
So defense a little bit farther ahead than the offense right now for sure.
I think it is. Yeah, I definitely would say defense is a little bit farther ahead, and it's just when you have a quarterback, he's never played in the spread. None of these kids have ever played in the spread. It takes a second. He's trying to figure out reads. The game's moving really fast for them. I really think as we get into game 3, 4, 5, it's going to start slowing down. They'll figure it out.
Tell me a little bit, or tell us a little bit about some of these kids. I mean, there's some familiar names back for you, but some new names to get to know for Montpelier football this season.
Yeah, we do. We have a huge junior class and a pretty big senior class. We only lost 3 or 4 kids from last year, so we have a lot of kids with a lot of experience. If you're talking about some kids with some new names, we've got Brendan Friends really stepped in. I know he played a little bit last year, but he's taken over the main running back role for us. Same thing with Ash Walls. Grant Garrell, he broke his elbow last year, didn't get really much playing time as all, and now he's the starting quarterback, and he's the starting quarterback in this tough offense to learn how to run. Cam Smith, he does a really good job. Braden Brink, Chavez Martin are playing on the outside for us. We had a freshman, the Cooley kid, who stepped in. He's had to play a lot. Logan Pontius, freshman, he's stepping in. He's actually starting at left guard for us. So those are some kids that, this is their first action that they're playing a ton. And they're doing a good job. They're learning. They physically are very developed as freshmen, so that's kind of a nice part as well.
What do you do well? Like if things are going well, I know not a lot went well on opening night, but scrimmage-wise and through practices, what do you see out of this group? If you're clicking and you're like, we can win some games, what are you doing well, Andy?
I guess that was the disappointing point on Friday was we were doing a great job. Grant was doing a great job of just taking what was given. We've talked about that in this offense. If it's open, get it to him. Get it to him right now. And I think things just got really fast on Friday night. And we were scrambling. You get down 21-0 right away, and you've had one offensive play before you're down 21-0. I think things just got to go really fast. We ran the ball really well in our scrimmages, really well. So, when things are going well, I think we can run the ball when we need to, but we're able to just kind of take what's given and march our way down the field.
Personal question, what was your takeaway, self-evaluation on, what did you learn? What was the game fast on that game night as a head coach? Talk a little bit from your perspective.
I would say just like Grant's learning the game offensively, calling plays for the first time, things were very fast. And again, I think we were scrambling. I think I started to scramble, but this isn't working, what can I do? And I went back and I talked to some of these guys on staff. I talked to Steve. He's like, I've been in that situation, man. You're down 21-0. You're trying to think, what can I do? And it's me getting back to, what do we do well? What do I want to be able to do well, not just this year, but next year and years ahead. So, it's getting in that spread, and even though things aren't going well, continue to plug away at it. You'll get better at it, and we'll be able to do this more efficiently.
And I think that's the key, and you've kind of touched on it without coming right out to say it. You believe in something, Coach, and even if things aren't going your way, you'll see this with a lot of coaches. They're going to wholesale change. I've seen it happen during the middle of the season. I think you're savvy enough to know, don't do that. Stick to what you believe in and get better over time. And obviously you're going to tweak, but this is what you want to do. This is what you believe in. And just keep going forward no matter what.
What are your numbers like through the program? You mentioned at the high school level. What about down through the junior high right now?
Yeah, like I said, 33 at the high school level right now is what we're at, and that's great. Actually, our junior high is at 23, which is phenomenal. I couldn't be happier. We had a couple more 8th graders that came back out. We had a lot of 8th graders that stayed out in the 7th grade class. We weren't really sure what we were going to get with them, and they're sitting probably 14, 15 kids. They had their first scrimmage last night. It sounds like it went really well for them. So I'm excited to see some of these kids come up through the program. And we're actually starting a 5th and 6th grade tackle bar. We're going to join in a league with Archbold and Hilltop, North Central, a couple teams this way. And I think we had 35 kids sign up to play in that, which is great. We're going to be able to have 2 teams. So our numbers are really doing well right now.
Did you feel like you had to be, in some instances, at some level, a little bit of a recruiter, too? Get into the hallways and maybe talk some kids into coming out for bodies, or did they do that on their own?
A little bit, but really it was the kids, It was even when Joe was doing it the last couple of years, we were trying. We were out in the hallways, and we were trying to get kids, and for one reason or another, hey, I don't want to play, or I want to do this, or I just, I want to have a free time, or whatever it might be. I encourage these kids, go get kids to play, and they did a great job. It was more them than it was us.
That's great.
So just a quick piece of advice, I guess it's great to recruit your own hallways, but if you can find an athlete or two, maybe in the Marion local district.
Absolutely.
Coldwater.
Anybody from the MAC that wants to come down here and play.
NIL deals, I know they rejected that, didn't they? But
Yeah, no NIL.
That might happen. Don't close your eyes on that down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. If you know a kid in the MAC or anything like that, they are more than welcome.
So I want to ask you, you mentioned that last weekend on opening weekend, Montpelier recognized the 92 team from 30 years ago. So a good chance to teach a little history. By the way, just for our listeners at home, you're sitting next to the greatest quarterback Montpelier's ever seen.
That's debatable.
He will shake that off, but he's the greatest quarterback Montpelier's ever seen, one of the best the NWL's ever had. Okay, from that era.
That's a law.
From that era.
I know Troy Roth right now, when he was a coach at Swanton, would dispute that from one night.
Okay, well, that's because he came up with a scheme like you wouldn't believe to shut the Foz down. But the question in there is whether it's the 92 team or the 100th season of Montpelier football, are you educating the kids on this? And if so, how do you go about that? And are they receptive to everything that's the history of Montpelier football?
Yeah, we've been talking about that since, the summer. Talking to these kids that this is important. Again, Joe Brigle, he put together this awesome, on YouTube, this awesome reel that showed teams, from the beginning of Montpelier all the way up. And we had that playing the whole, before we went out for pregame. And the 92 team was actually right outside the door when we came out for the game. We've talked to these kids about how important football has been in this community and how we need to try to get it back to that. People are craving good Montpelier football again. And I think these kids, they want to get to that point. We haven't had a lot of success recently, and I think sometimes it's tough. I think once it starts to happen and we can build on some, a little bit of success here and there, then, we can get back to that point.
And Andy's got a plan. His dad was a coach. He played in a great program, so you can see that everything you just get the idea just talking to him tonight. He's got a vision going forward, and I think Montpelier's got the right guy with you. And just stay positive and take your lumps when you get them, and you're going to improve. Believe in what you're doing. I know you've got some talent coming in the younger levels and into the, at least appears to be, in the elementary levels. There's a lot of kids that are interested in playing football. So I think, as you said, Montpelier's starving for a good football team, and I think this is the man that can bring it to them.
One last question. Evergreen this week on the road. Give us a quick scouting report on Evergreen.
They're a good team. I think they're building. They're kind of where we are at kind of a little bit of a different level. They're at that bottom of the NWL, but the NWL is tough. I know Evan over there, their head guy. He's going to do some really good things over there. They got a real good receiver, 6'4" kid, plays on the outside, so we're going to try to have to figure out a way to stop him. Quarterback runs hard. They're playing hard right now. They played, North Baltimore last week, and they played them well. Yeah,
soundly.
48-0.
48-0. I don't know how good North Baltimore is, but that's still whatever.
Yeah, but Evergreen's doing some good things, but, I think if we can fix, get the offense rolling a little bit, I think our defense is figuring out that our defense had a phenomenal week of practice, phenomenal. I'm excited to kind of see what we can do and if we can take that step going forward before we got to get ready then for Edgerton and the league.
We'll see you. Look forward to seeing you for the first time over at Edgerton. Andy, thanks for being with us. Best of luck this week and all the way through this first season at Montpelier.
Thank you, guys.
Andy Robinson, head coach of the Montpelier Locos. We'll step aside, take our first break. We talk Hicksville football with Lucas Smith coming up next.
It's Thirsty Thursday at all the main stops in Northwest Ohio. What does that mean? It means that every Thursday, all day long, you will get any size fountain drink or any size coffee for only 79 cents. All day long, every Thursday, any size fountain drink, any size coffee or cappuccino. Stop in to your main stop and see everything they have to offer every day. Main stops, always there when you need us.
The Bryan Parks and Recreation Department would like to wish the Bryan Golden Bears good luck in tonight's game. The Bryan Parks and Rec offers a wide variety of classes for you during the entire year and an array of sporting events all year long. Check out what the Bryan Parks and Recreations Department has going on at bryanparksandrec.com or like them on Facebook. The Bryan Parks and Rec hopes to see you in one of the many parks that Bryan has to offer and enjoy the facilities. Questions about the classes or rental of one of their facilities, call 633-6030.
I want to talk to you for the next 30 seconds about the place to go for your next vehicle. Terry Hendricks Ford on Stryker Street in Archibald. Whether it's a new vehicle for purchase, a lease vehicle, or perhaps a pre-owned vehicle, Terry Hendricks Ford on Stryker Street in Archibald is the place to turn. They also have this fantastic service department as well. Service after the sale. Terry Hendricks Ford, serving all of your vehicle needs in Northwest Ohio. Go to terryhendricksford.com.
This summer is the perfect time to hit the open road in a new Chevy. With its impressive towing capability, Chevy Silverado is open to taking the boat out and making some waves. With its off-road capabilities, Chevy Trailblazer is open to new points of view. Wow. And with its many safety features, Chevy Equinox is open to added confidence on your weekend getaways. See how a new Chevy can help you go a little farther this summer. Visit northwestohiochevy.com.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God.
The Pledge of Allegiance. It reminds us we're one nation. But J.R. Majewski wants to tear our nation apart. He says Ohio should leave the United States. Yeah, Majewski wants Ohio to secede. Listen, and this is his voice.
Every state that went red should secede from the United States.
That's the same Majewski who marched with the angry mob that attacked our Capitol, waving that Confederate flag, assaulting our police. But instead of apologizing, Majewski blames law enforcement.
Capitol Police, they were very irresponsible.
7 people died. 140 officers were injured. And Majewski blames the police? Secession, violence, attacks on our police? Majewski's not a patriot. He's a dangerous extremist.
I'm Marcy Captor, and I approve this message. Paid for by Captor for Congress.
When it comes to choosing a memorial that represents the lasting memories of a person's life, the Fackler Monument Company in Montpelier, Ohio can create exactly what you are looking for, like an eagle soaring through the woods etched on a memorial, a bench that has mom and dad's names engraved into the granite to sit and reflect, a picture of the family farm etched on the stone, or maybe your style is a memorial that has a split headstone with a vase in between for flowers. Our experienced team realizes it is not easy to select a memorial in a time of sorrow, so we invite you to visit us as part of your pre-planning. By talking to us now, there is no stress or high pressure, just good information for you to make your choice. At Fackler Monument, we feature the largest indoor display in the tri-state area, and our specialty is creating custom memorials with a variety of shapes, colors, and sizes. We'll walk you through the entire process. Go online to facklermonument.com to see what we have to offer. That's facklermonument.com. The Fackler Monument Company of Montpelier, Ohio, serving families in the tri-state area since 1924.
The task.
Welcome back here to JJ Wins in Holiday City. It's our first night of Sports Weekly for the 22-23 school year. By the way, next week we have one guest confirmed. We have some feelers out for other guests next week. Brian, head football coach. Grant Redhead will join us next week. Already have Travis Cooper from Defiance lined up. Brody Flagel from Edgerton is lined up as far as confirmed. David Dominic at Archibald. So a lot of good guests coming our way here this fall for this sports season. Lucas Smith, glad to have you with us here. Got you a little earlier this year. Feel like you're like a September, October.
Yeah,
Did catch you by surprise?
Usually it's late in the year, and I was more than glad to come early. And not that I want to get it out of the way, just school starts tomorrow for us teachers. I thought we can kind of check this box. First day for teachers tomorrow. Kids come Monday.
Oh, Monday. Oh, because of the fair.
Yeah,
Defiance County Fair.
Always wait for the fair.
Okay. So season 15. 16 he had Hicksville. Wow, I lost a year in there in my research. I know coming on the heels of a tough one.
Yeah.
No other way to put it at 1-9. What was that like for you, for the kids, for the program going into the off season on a low like that?
Yeah, that was rough. That was something I've never done before. The only other losing season we've had was back in 2010, and that was 4-6. And that was followed with an 11-3 Final Four run the year after that. So an 8-win season and 9-win season before that, 4 wins. So that was surrounded with a lot of success. And all of a sudden we had our second losing season in 15 years. And, a lot of people just said, hey, it happens. It comes in cycles. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, no, it hasn't. It doesn't. No, it does. It doesn't have to. Like, what makes people think it has to go in cycles? But, we're just in that little lull right now where numbers have been down. The kids that we have are great kids. I love coaching them. But they just haven't won a lot, even in junior high. Like our current sophomore class didn't win a single game in junior high. Their first win was last year when we beat Paulding, that they played a little bit in. Even our current seniors, most of them last year against Paulding was their first win where they actually were big time contributors. Because again, I've been very blessed to have a lot of really good football players over over the first 14 years. And then year 15, we just had this little bump, and I think we're on our way back. Yeah. I think it's going to take some time, but again, you got to kind of almost reteach them how to win. They don't know what it's like and the work it takes at practice, the work it takes in the off season, and not just being in the weight room, not just being at practice, but you have to practice with a certain sense of urgency and physicality if you want to win on Fridays.
And it's so important to have competitive practices, and I think sometimes when you don't have the numbers and the depth, and for sure the talent at depth, you don't get those live game reps in practice, and it's almost, stagnant at practice time when you're going against a team that a group of kids that are just outmatched.
Absolutely, that's why you need numbers.
And that's the big thing. You need numbers, and hopefully you got some older numbers, so there's some bigger, stronger bodies that are moving around there and making it game-like situations for you. And I think that's the biggest things in how teams, would you concur, I guess the question's for you, what you're doing the interview here, that you see teams that kind of go down the wrong track when they have limited numbers because you just don't get that competitive game look during practice times, and it kind of just continues on and on and on.
Right, that's exactly what we've seen the last year or two. And, back to last year just a little bit, we had a lot of big injuries. We lost a lot of our leaders for 4, 5, and 6 weeks of the season. And then so now you're relying on freshmen. And again, back to the competition, like when there's no competition for spots, people get stagnant. They get complacent. And
human nature.
Yeah, you do. If if you don't have to work hard, most people don't naturally work hard if they don't have to.
Right.
And so we're right now in a situation where, you as a coach, it's like, all right, I got to get that kid out, to try to motivate him. But then you look and it's like, well, I don't really have a whole lot to pull from, and they know that. So, again, just trying to get those numbers up. And again, that's not going to change overnight. That's just us getting more involved in our youth program and getting more kids excited about football and that sort of stuff.
You've done this for a lot of years. Not many coaches have had the success that you have had over the 16-year period that you had. So let's not lose sight of that here just because you've had a couple years where it has not been where you'd want it to be. What do you see as the biggest challenge? And then you're going to say getting numbers out. Well, how do you get numbers out? Football's a different sell, I think, than it was maybe even 15 years ago. So what do you do? What are some things you can do to get creative, to get kids interested? Because you have talked about this before. Football's kind of a dying sport. And what do we do to keep high school football moving?
Yeah, I wish I had a really good answer for you on that. But, there is such a big push in and I don't want to knock, travel club AAU stuff, but kids can play baseball and basketball year round. And if I'm being honest, football is a lot of hard work.
It's just hard.
It's hard.
Wrestling and football use two sports that you're seeing numbers diminish.
Yeah.
And there's a reason
and
for
they're hard.
That. Yes.
June, July, and August in football, it's not fun. Even Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in football, they're not fun.
90% of your team doesn't touch the ball.
Yeah.
They're playing a game without touching the ball.
It's hot. It's nasty. It's physical. It's like, I can do other things and still be active and still play sports, but not have that type of work involved. But what we're doing is I'm basically taking back over my 5th and 6th grade tackle team. I'm coaching it along with some of my assistants and my high school players. As every year or two, you have a new group of dads that are willing to volunteer, and they've always done a good job, but it's always a new group every year or two, and you're trying to build continuity. Even your high school staff, you have to have continuity so that you can work together and build that program. Well, you need that in your youth program too. So, and if I'm being honest, the game of football has changed over the last 5 or 6 years with new rules, new tackling techniques, and I think for the better. It is safer. I think football is as safe as it's ever been. And I trust my high school players more than I trust a common Joe off the street to teach my 5th and 6th graders how to tackle properly and have fun and learn our offense and learn our defense. So that's basically what we're going to do a couple days a week. And we're not in a league.
Right.
We pulled out of the GMC league a couple years ago. We keep everything in-house because we need to grow our numbers. And what I'm seeing too, our junior high kids, for some reason here, I don't think our kids are maybe developing physically as fast as some of the area teams, and a 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grader plays football and goes up against a kid that's a lot bigger and stronger and faster, and he doesn't like it, and they decide when they're 12 years old that they don't like football. I'm not getting them back.
You're not getting them back. You're saying everything I've said for years and years. Yeah, good stuff, Coach. How do you have time to go down there and be so active in the 5th and 6th grade program when you're not getting home till 6:30 at night, and some knuckleheads up here at the radio show want you to come up and talk to them? How you doing all that?
One of the good things is my son's a 6th grader, so you're going to be there anyways. You might as well coach it. Now, I'm not doing this for 1 year. I think this is what we have to do to get the high school program back to where it needs to be. So I just think sometimes the job takes what it takes, and you got to find a way to make it happen. I've got a great wife who is very supportive, and it's going to be a challenging year because she just moved into an assistant principal role at Hicksville too. So it's been a whirlwind here in the fall to try to balance all that. But again, I'll rely heavily on my assistant coaches. I'm going to rely heavily on my varsity football players. And to me, if you can teach it, you can do it. So I think just as is good for my varsity or for my youth kids to be taught the right way, it's just as good for my high school kids to be teaching these kids how to run a cover 2 or cover 3 or tackle technique. I think that there's more ownership and buy-in there as well. And one other thing too, I decided just this week that I'm going to, I was running the special teams and the defense, and we got mini aces starting, and luckily I've got a couple of new really good assistant coaches, and I'm handing over the defense to one of my assistants. One of my other assistants has the offense, so I'm kind of becoming that true head coach. I'm still going to run the special teams. I've always done a lot with special teams. I'm still going to run that. I'm still going to coach an offensive position and still coach a defensive position just to be involved. But I'm going to let the coordinators do their thing, and that's going to help me, just lighten my load on the weekends and on game nights, and maybe step back and see a bigger picture of what needs to get done. Because if I'm being honest, these last several years, it's almost tunnel vision. How do I just survive? How do I survive this football season and be a good husband and be a good father and get to go see volleyball games on a Tuesday and Thursday and still do your job as a coach? And that's been hard.
And there's no more difficult sport to coach. There isn't. I've been a head football coach. I'm a head girls basketball coach now. It's not even close how much more difficult it is to coach high school football because of numbers, because of rules, because of equipment, all of those things. It's just a difficult sport to coach. And I'm not sure that everybody who's never done it understands that. It's different. It just doesn't mean one sport's better than the other. I'm not saying that or should give it preferential treatment, but it does take more time.
And again, I think I said it to you guys either last year or 2 years ago. I've really struggled the last several years to enjoy Friday nights. Friday is my least favorite night of the week. And as a football coach, Friday should be your most favorite, Right. But for me, what it's been is I've been trying, I think, to juggle so many things and do everything as well as I can. Come Friday at 10 o'clock, it's starting all back over. I got laundry. I got to start laundry after the game. We got to start looking at film.
You're emotionally and mentally wiped out.
And even if you won the game, you get to enjoy it for about 5 minutes before you have to start getting ready for the next one. And I don't think people understand that. How short that is of a time that you get to enjoy it, or and it just goes right back to work, and your whole weekend is working on film and scouting reports and figuring out who's hurt. And again, with small numbers, okay, if this starter's out, well, he's also a two-way starter and on half your special team, so I got to replace 6 positions from one kid.
It's not plug and play like other sports. It's not.
No.
Where basketball, a kid gets hurt, it's terrible. But you put somebody in and they're going to know the whole general. That's not the case. The right guard's assignments are a heck of a lot different than the split ends.
Yes, it's way different.
So I want to ask you about, let's focus on this year's team. I know, like Andy, a tough opener for you against a good Patrick Henry team, but tell us a little bit about this Hicksville team this year. When you're playing well, what are you doing well, and where are your biggest areas, leaps that you need to take as the year goes on?
I say the biggest leaps is just our consistency and physicality. I know we can do things physically. Our kids know mentally what to do because we're quizzing them all the time. Okay, where are we weak at in this coverage? What do we have to do here? Why are we doing this? Like, I have become, I say over the last 3 or 4 years, try to do a really good job in explaining why behind everything we do. And then I quiz them throughout the week. Okay, why are we doing this again? And they can spit it back to me. So I know they know mentally why we have to do things a certain way. I know physically they can do it. It's just a matter of, on Friday nights, getting them to do it. Because I see it during the week. And again, Friday night's different than Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You know, when the lights come on and the pressure's there, you don't always execute the way the way you do at practice. And so I think just that consistency, physicality, and when we're doing those things and we're having fun, we don't have a lot of, our upperclassmen are pretty laid back, a lot like me in a sense. We need to get more energy, and that's another reason I stepped away from being the defensive coordinator and gave it to like one of my assistants, because they've got more of that energy, fire, and it's not in my nature to be that guy, but the kids need somebody to feed off of. So again, I think I can recognize where I'm not strong and pass that off to somebody who's better at it.
And I think that's great, Lucas, being self-aware of your own personal strengths and weaknesses and trying to maximize that for the betterment of the team.
Right.
So, yeah, another great, and you're a great top-notch coach, and you, with all your success, that doesn't surprise me that even in your 16th year, you're still doing some self-reflecting and saying, hey, maybe this is an area for the betterment of the team. And myself, I'll take a step back, and I think that's going to help us down the road. So
Quarterback change this year, too, we want to talk a little bit about from last year to this year, right?
Yeah.
So Brody Balzer's taken over. What's he bring to the table for you offensively?
Again, he's that physical runner, and he reads the option well. We've always been a big option team or zone read team. He does a great job with that. He's very well respected by his teammates and coaches. So again, when you've got somebody in that role who's a physical runner, who is well respected by everybody around him, I think that offense can kind of rally around him. And I'd say, again, one thing that we don't do well that we're starting to get better at is to hold each other accountable. Like right now, again, our upperclassmen don't want to call each other out. We're starting to get to that where Brody and some of the other seniors are starting to be like, hey, listen, that's your job. You better do it. And of course, guys are starting to get a little chirpy and they start mouthing back. But the good thing was with that, like, football's a physical sport. Like, let's go ahead and line back up and let's figure out who's right and who's wrong. You know, kind of get the alpha male out there a little bit. And then, you know, I think you need that in football. Yep. I think you got to have that guy that's willing to be that cutthroat leader, you know, and speak truth. And, you know, I think that's where we're kind of heading. And I think Brody's starting to do more of that. We've got another senior, Nolan Methvin, who basically texted me over the weekend, said, hey, I've got some ideas for the weight room for this next week. You know, what do you think? I go, you can run it. Because, again, I want to empower these kids to take on those leadership roles. That ownership increases, the work ethic increases, leadership development, you know. So I think PH was an eye-opener. And, again, that's why we played Archibald for 10 years. We scrimmaged Bryan and Delta. We played Coldwater for a couple years. We got Crestview this Friday. We don't play teams just to try to make our, you know, schedule look.
We always
play a good non-conference schedule, and that's to get us ready for the GMC.
And the GMC this year is wide open. I mean, there's a handful of teams that all could stake claim to the championship this year. Talk to us a little bit about who you see as the front runners.
You know, Antwerp had a lot of success last year and bring back some good guys. Tenora's Tenora. Yeah. And they've always got, you know, dudes, it seems like. Wayne Trace was, I think their junior class right now is extremely talented, and they just beat Fort Recovery.
My guess is Fort Recovery's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a max. Even when Fort Recovery's 500 or 3-7, they're still a good team. You know,
I believe it.
Because we scrimmaged them for 4, 5, 6 years, Fort Recovery, and you know they're extremely talented. So, you know, those in Edgerton, you know, they scrimmaged PH just a week or two ago and was right with them, and obviously PH, you know, owned us. So I think we've got a long ways to go as a program to compete with those schools, because if we do what we did against Patrick Henry, I told the kids, you're just going to see the same thing. It's going to be 56-8 every Friday night if we don't change the things that need to get changed.
Crestview, you mentioned them. I saw they won last week. What can you tell us about Crestview this year?
They're good. I can tell you that. They're good. I'm starting to watch film, and I can see their athletes and their size. And, again, you start watching their line, and you see they zone block a lot. And you see every lineman step with the correct foot in the correct direction at the same time.
Corey Lichtensteiver still coaching there?
Yeah, I think Corey's, you know, it's like, okay, they're well coached. They're big. They're strong. They're fast. It's like they're talented. You know, so and our kids know it, and I've never been the coach that's going to sugarcoat it to them and say, well, you know, we can do this and we can do that. It's like, no, here are their studs. Here's what we have to do. Here's what you have to change. You know, all I can do, and I showed them on film how many different times, special team-wise, offense and defense, we had the exact right call to our scheme versus their scheme, their kids, and we had the numbers to do it, and their 1 or 2 beat our 3 or 4. Yeah. You know, it's like, guys, I can't do any more for you than to put you in a perfect position on a Friday night, and all you have to do is execute it for 5 or 6 seconds. You know, now it's up to them to kind of take that ownership and take it to the next level.
What are your numbers like? I asked Andy about that at Montpelier. We talked high school, but what's it look like for junior high?
We're 36 in the high school right now, which has been that's pretty good for us for the last couple of years. And junior high, we're like 18 maybe. And then we haven't even started our 5th and 6th grade yet. We're going to do that. We waited till after fair. We're going to wait till after Labor Day and start that up. So I honestly don't know where that's at. I know my son's 6th grade class, I think there's 50 boys in that grade. Now, how many of them can we get to play football?
Let's get half of them.
But that's I'm hoping we get a lot of them, and that's a good group of athletes in that 6th grade. So I think they're coming. You know, it's just going to take a few years to get it back to, you know, what I'm used to, you know, and what Hicksville is used to as well.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you coming on with us tonight. We wish you good luck against Crestview and the rest of the way with the 2022 schedule. Thanks for all your time this year and every year coming over here.
Thanks, guys. Maybe you'll have one of our games and we'll win, and I'll get to talk to you guys.
That sounds wonderful.
That does sound wonderful to me too.
Lucas Smith, head coach of the Hicksville Aces, our second guest tonight. We're going to continue with our final segment. A lot to talk about here. College game, changing, evolving, good, bad, indifferent. We'll get the Faz's thoughts and more when we come back to Sports Weekly here on a Wednesday, our first show of 22 and 23. Stay with us.
At American Family Insurance, we believe that with the right support, any dream is possible. For auto, home, business, or life, contact Danielle Vanetta at 419-636-0408 or stop by 1318 East High Street in Bryan today. American Family Mutual Insurance Company, SI and its operating companies. American Family Life Insurance Company, 6000 American Parkway, Madison, Wisconsin, 53783.
Here's your updated B-Rock 100.9 forecast. Mainly clear skies tonight with a low of 60. Southwesterly winds around 5 miles per hour. A mix of clouds and sun tomorrow, highs around 84. 64 tomorrow night, chance for scattered storms. Seasonal temperatures Friday and Saturday with highs in the low 80s. Chance for scattered thunderstorms Friday. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Paul Trombley. Currently, it's 80 degrees.
It's Thirsty Thursday at all the main stops in Northwest Ohio. What does that mean? It means that every Thursday, all day long, you will get any size fountain drink or any size coffee for only 79 cents. All day long, every Thursday, any size fountain drink, any size coffee or cappuccino. Stop in to your main stop and see everything they have to offer every day. Main Stops, always there when you need us.
The Bryan Parks and Recreation Department would like to wish the Bryan Golden Bears good luck in tonight's game. The Bryan Parks and Rec offers a wide variety of classes for you during the entire year and an array of sporting events all year long. Check out what the Bryan Parks and Recreations Department has going on at bryanparksandrec.com or like them on Facebook. The Bryan Parks and Rec hopes to see you in one of the many parks that Bryan has to offer and enjoy the facilities. Questions about the classes or rental of one of their facilities, call 633-6030.
highly satisfied customers that request Impede Intraseal in their new concrete. Impede Intraseal eliminates the future cost and hassle of sealing your concrete. To locate an Impede Intraseal concrete producer near you, visit neversealagain.com.
I want to talk to you for the next 30 seconds about the place to go for your next vehicle. Terry Hendricks Ford on Stryker Street in Archbold. Whether it's a new vehicle for purchase, a lease vehicle, or perhaps a pre-owned vehicle, Terry Hendricks Ford on Stryker Street in Archbold is the place to turn. They also have this fantastic service department as well. Service after the sale. Terry Hendricks Ford, serving all of your vehicle needs in Northwest Ohio. Go to terryhendricksford.com.
Whole family is.
Welcome back out here to JJ Wins in Holiday City, our final segment of Sports Weekly tonight. I want to dive into next week. We're going to get in. This is week 0 coming up. There's one game that I want to.
When did week 0 become a thing, by the way?
I'd say in the last half dozen years.
Has it been?
Probably.
Like a year or so.
You know, it's a nice little appetite.
Yeah.
Wetter here.
Well, what's week 0 mean? Couple games before the most
there's a conference game. There's a Big Ten conference
Nebraska
game.
and Northwestern.
In Ireland. In Dublin, which I don't.
Pat Fitzgerald.
That's
an Irish name.
That's got to be the only connection for them to go there.
They're 13-point dogs.
So we'll get to that in just a minute. I know you love your picks, and we got a lot in week 1 that we're going to get to next Wednesday. And I'm just planting the seed now. I want your Final 4 next Wednesday night.
Next Wednesday night?
And your Heisman winner. That's going into the beginning of the year.
Okay,
You gotta predict that. I don't need it now.
I know that. I'm just going to tell you, I don't think it's going to be that going out on a limb. I mean, everybody's taking the same 3. It's just a matter of who's taking the 4th.
All right, well, the Foz will come up with somebody. He's got an Oklahoma State or somebody lurking like he does every year. So as we talk about college sports in general, specifically college football, a lot of change since when you and I were on the air, and there's a lot more change that's coming, and that's in terms of where we're at with conferences right now. Big Ten, which, by the way, I saw an interview with Commissioner Kevin Warren on HBO's Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel. He is an impressive guy. He's a true business guy, and a lot of fans wanted him gone with the way he handled COVID in 2020, and he's more than redeemed himself now with the largest TV and media contract in collegiate history, and it's only going to get bigger. But I want to talk a little bit about, he's an impressive dude, and he said the Big Ten name, that's what I was going to say, the Big Ten name is staying because it's a brand.
No matter how many names.
It's a brand.
I don't know if I like that.
So it's staying, so we're at 16 now. I don't think we're done. He said he could see it get to 20. But the changes are SC and UCLA now. So you have the first true Power 5 that's literally seaboard to seaboard. It's coast to coast.
Yeah.
So that's one of the changes. NIL is part of the changes. This is all part of it.
A lot at one time.
A lot at one time. And I can see why we have people that are resisting it. Okay? This is just, you can get on the train or get off the train, but this is the way we're going. I want to get your thoughts on all of that, starting with the expansion and getting the California market, the 2 big jewels of the California market in SC and UCLA there. What's this mean? Big Ten, big picture, college football, big picture.
I mean, nothing different than what everybody already knows. It's just about the TV rights and the billions of dollars that they're going to get.
Over $7 billion
so
on
now
this deal.
Yeah, I mean, now the Big Ten owns New York City, kind of Washington, D.C. with Maryland, Chicago, and now L.A., not to mention smaller big cities like Detroit, Indianapolis, Columbus, and anywhere in between. That's a lot of eyeballs and a lot of money. And I think that goes hand in hand now with NIL, because with all of that money and with all of that exposure and revenue comes the possibility to have more opportunities for athletes to get NIL deals. Now, what are you talking about? Well, if you're in LA, and there's obviously a ton of different businesses, and what they're forming now is what's called collectives. Now, these collectives are a bunch of businesses that come together and say that we're going to offer NIL deals. Now, they're not allowed to make deals with recruits before they sign. However, everybody knows that that's probably going on. So the more interest you have with TVs, the more collectives you're going to have, the more opportunities for revenue for student athletes. Is that a good thing? An old traditionalist will say, no, that's not a good thing because a $100,000 education and they eat better and they live better than normal students and they get the opportunity if they're good enough to play pro ball is enough. But then the more of the new age person or the more progressive way of thinking and the younger person, by and large, believes that they have the right, just like anybody, in a free market society to make as much money as they want off their name, image, and likeness.
And I'm an old guy that's in that group. I got no problem with it at its core. Now, we do have to find a way to police it.
And we know federal legislation.
And we know that's not happening.
It's not happening. It's the Wild West right now.
This
is the time in which everything that the naysayers said is happening. Kids are getting bought right out of high school before they play it down. It's just happening. So there has to be some federal legislation, some uniformity, I think, so you can kind of have some set rules across the board. I'm not saying limit anything, but just making sure that some of these things in which are policy right now become actual law.
Saw an interview with Notre Dame Athletic Director Jack Swarbrick, okay, very intelligent guy. He said this wild, wild west that you're talking about is going to probably still be in play, minimum of 3, maximum of 5 years, but we're going to get something done. It's just what happens in between now and then. And the CFP, College Football Playoff Committee, is talking about the possibility. They've had preliminary discussions of taking over college football as the committee. So that means the NCAA becomes obsolete from a football capacity. But with that discussion, you now have all the Olympic sports that you also have to talk about. And that's something that we didn't talk a little bit about. Maybe we need to. The move of USC and UCLA into the Big Ten. Football is traveling once a week, and you're getting there on Thursday at the earliest, Friday more than likely, and you're gone Saturday night or Sunday morning. You're going to be playing Big Ten games, whether it's volleyball, basketball, whatever, and you're going to have
on a Tuesday night.
Yeah, and that's where we didn't think of that because what's the engine that drives this vehicle? It's football, and it always has been and always will be.
Yeah, football number 1, obviously, then basketball number 2. But you're right, it is. And the term student athlete, is kind of waning, especially when you're during season. You can't take that many classes and be in a basketball team, for example, and you're traveling 2-3 nights a week, and you're in, Rutgers, New Jersey on one night, and Ann Arbor, Michigan on another. So a lot of challenges. I know there's online availability now, and that changes things a little bit. But the day of a lot of kids having full schedules in really difficult classes during their season, I think, are probably starting to become fewer and far between.
So what the Big Ten did, the SEC's lurking with some kind of move down the road, whether it's expansion or a re-upping of their TV deal. That's going to happen at some point in time. Are we heading toward 2 super conferences, the Big Ten and the SEC, maybe a third, but are we heading in that direction? And we also need to touch on the elephant in the room right now is the Big Ten, well, the SEC for that matter, and the ACC, that big get that's still out there is Notre Dame. And what do they do with all of this? The language that I just read today that was released in that TV deal, only one other school in the Big Ten's contract with the networks by name mentioned is Notre Dame. Yeah. Now, they want other schools, Stanford, Oregon, we've heard those, Washington, whatever it may be. Notre Dame's the only one that's mentioned, and where that would jump the revenue then for schools and the networks collectively.
Yeah, I mean, there's no secret that, there's obviously a lot of Notre Dame haters out there, but there's no secret that they still yield a tremendous amount of power, if not more power than anybody in the country. But the tradition that they have and the success that they've had in the Catholic Church and a lot of different reasons, Notre Dame is still Notre Dame, and the Big Ten would love nothing more to get. I'm not so sure Notre Dame wants to be in a conference, but I think eventually they're going to have no other choice from a financial standpoint.
You're probably right.
And more
2 years, 5 years, whatever.
Yeah, and more importantly, to compete for national championship standpoint, they're going to be forced to do it, and it most likely will be the Big Ten. From the SEC perspective, and to answer your question too, yes, I think we are going to 2 super conferences. I just don't see how the ACC and the Big 12 and whatever's left of the Pac-10 now can compete on any level. The SEC, right now I heard Commissioner Stanky say that they're not in any hurry to expand from their 16 teams. They don't need to. That's the perfect number right now. But as the Big Ten begins to expand, one has to wonder, you think Florida State, you think Clemson, you think Miami, Florida would all be big fits. North Carolina seems to be a big brand. Maybe not so much football, but there's a lot of people that live in North Carolina now. And, of course, basketball brings that to the table. So that's kind of the fourth name that you're hearing from the SEC if they do expand. We will see. I don't know. I'm certain we're not done from the Big Ten or the SEC. The Big Ten also has the American Universities Association of Universities, which they're called. And what that is you have to meet certain academic standards. And all of them in the Big Ten, all of the Big Ten schools, except for Nebraska, are a part of that association. Now, what it all entails, I don't know. Certain entrance requirements, if you have a med school, things like that. USC and UCLA fit the bill. Obviously, Notre Dame would fit that bill. Stanford obviously would fit that bill. Those are schools that are in line with their academic integrity, not just their athletic integrity. The SEC is not all in on the Association of American Athletics or American Universities and that academic standpoint they're not all in on that organization.
Well, it's going to be fascinating, I think is the word, to see how this all plays out. There's a lot of us in our age group, traditionalists that you've made mention of, that are angry that you're not going to see that Rose Bowl game and it's not going to mean as much. At the end of the day, here's where I'm coming from. I get it, all right? I'm from your school. When you say old school or I say old school, it's from our school. I get all of that, and I agree with some of that to a point. But it's 2022. We can't continue to be get off our lawn dudes, right? Get on board or quit watching college football, all right? It's still going to be a great brand. It's still going to be a great game. It's just going to look differently. That's how I'm kind of approaching. It's just going to look differently starting this year and moving forward. But you're right, we do need to figure out that NIL situation. That's the biggest thing that's really dirty in the game right now.
Yeah, we're not a regional conference anymore. It's not regional-based conferences anymore like it once was, and that's tough for people. And you're right, the Rose Bowl's how is that going to be? Because if you're a Big Ten fan, that's everything. Going to the Rose Bowl and out there in Pasadena, California is everything. That's the great.
It's still going to be everything, but guess what? It's probably going to be a Final Four game when it's going to be everything.
Could be.
Quickly, high school football. We had Eden Edgerton. We had a really good game. There were 3 games that were close. We had one of them, and both teams did nice things. We have Eden this week at Antwerp. We get a first look at, and from all accounts that I've heard from people that have scouted and watched Antwerp, and we talked to Andy a little bit about, they're legit. And Carson Aldemus has just control of that offense right now. Keaton, his older brother, Dad Drew are part of the staff and helping, but Carson has complete control of that offense. They've got good skill kids. Looking forward to that matchup this week.
I am too, and Antwerp has got a chance to win the GMC. They may very well do that. They've got the athletes, as you said, Carson Aldemus. I apologize, I called him by his brother's name a couple different times, but he's legit, only a junior, first team all GMC quarterback, and he does have a good stable of athletes around him. Eden's not bad. Eden competed. That game was in doubt the whole game against Edgerton, and I think Edgerton's a very good football team. Eden's young. They're sophomore dominated. Some good young players that are right now, unfortunately for them, have got 2 of their most difficult opponents in week 1 and week 2. So they're getting baptized by fire right now. But I think Eden will show up. I think Eden will do some good things against Antwerp. Not so sure. We haven't seen Antwerp yet. I don't know if they have enough to beat Antwerp or not, but Eden's good enough to beat anybody on any given night. They get a few breaks.
Going to throw out a few games here just to kind of set the table for the weekend. Here are, at least on paper, I think, if not great matchups, good matchups, or at least name matchups. Archbold goes to St. Henry this weekend. Yeah. Wasion's at Tenora. Tenora was housed last week. So they're going to be looking for redemption in their first home game. Wasion's good. Napoleon didn't look good against Defiance. They go to Liberty Center, who looked tremendous last week. And Patrick Henry at Wayne Trace. That's an intriguing week 2 game.
That really is. That's the one that I'm going to be watching. 2 very similar districts in just about every way. Very rural, consolidated districts. One in Paulding County, obviously one in Henry County. We really like Wayne Trace and what they bring to the table. We think they can compete for the GMC title. They'll be right up there. And Patrick Henry's loaded. They just demolished Hicksville this week. And they've got some really good young talent. Not so sure they're going to, beat the likes of Archibald and Liberty Center this year. But the NWO, a little bit bigger conference, so a little bit more difficult competition. That'll be a nice game to watch.
By the way, what we talked about last week in week 1 about the possibility has come to fruition. So if you know somebody that wants to be an official, we need them.
Saw that.
One game has been moved already. Ottawa Hills and Evergreen is going to be a Thursday night game. More than likely is not going to be the last game because of the official shortage. So get involved if you want to get involved. This is a good way to do it.
Get involved if you want to. And what can you do if you don't want to get involved? Go there. And I don't even mind now and then, Andy, if you disagree with a call. But, some of this nonsense that we see with people, chasing officials to their car and after they
and worse.
And worse. Come on now. I mean, I you know what? I've been involved with sports my whole life, okay? I am 28 years of age, all right? So I can go all the way back to the 70s.
Borderline.
And I know that the culture is sometimes you get on the officials a little bit. It's always been like, not saying it's right, it just has. And I don't have a problem with somebody saying, that wasn't a flag or something. But if you start using foul language and you take it to the next level and you're following them out into a car and you're getting physical, that's ridiculous. Just stop it. Just stop it.
Hey, good first show.
Yeah, I think so.
Good to have you back. Thanks to Andy Robinson. Thanks to Lucas Smith. Bob, of course, back at the controls for us. Great crowd tonight. Sports Weekly, driven each week by Terry Hendricks Ford. JJ Wins in Holiday City. Brian Parks and Rec Department. Fackler Monument Company and the main stops of Northwest Ohio. Next Wednesday, we know we have at least one confirmed in Grant Redhead and working on others. And we're just getting rolling. We're doing this until April again. Don't forget Football Friday this week. Week 2, Eden at Antwerp on B-Rock and on Q96.5. It'll be Mommy at Brian. Have a great Wednesday. We'll talk to you Friday night here on B-Rock.